For our next scenario, let's implement all the functionality we need so that when the user clicks on edit a video, they can change some of the properties of that video, save it back to the server, and see it refreshed in this list. This is going to require a bit more code, but we're starting to form a base so that when we implement delete, and ultimately also want to do create a new video, those pieces are going to be easy. So when we edit a video, if I think through what has to happen, the first thing I might want to do when someone clicks on edit this MVC video is I might want to go back to the server and get the latest version of that video, just in case something has changed in the database, but primarily because I want to show you how to implement the get video controller action that takes an ID. Obviously now we're looking for a video and not some string, so I'm going to paste in some code that represents getting a video. The first thing we'll do is find that video in our database, find it using the find API of the DB context. That's a really easy way to find an entity by its primary key value. And then if the video is null, what do we do? That means we didn't find it in the database. Well, this is one of those cases where we want to have a little more control over what the client gets back. We just don't want to send them an empty video. That's not really a good indication of what happened on the server. And this is where we can start taking control a little more over the HTTP message that gets returned to the client. It turns out that HTTP already has a perfect way to represent what happens when you try to get something and it's not there, and that's to return an HTTP status code of not found. That's your typical 404 error. And the way I'll do that is by throwing an exception. Something went wrong. You asked for a video that's not there. We obviously had some sort of identifier on the client that shouldn't have existed. So we will throw an HTTP response exception that will generate an HTTP 404 message ultimately to the client that would raise that AJAX error handler on the client and tell the user that they had a 404 not found error. But if we did find the video, we'll just hand it back and let the formatter serialize it into whatever format that the client requested. So with that in place, what I'd like is some sort of representation here in my video server of a method that would allow me to get a video. And it's going to be very similar to get videos in the sense that we just need to use $.ajax, use that video API URL, but now we need to include the ID in that URL. So it should be something like /API/videos/5 as the ID. And I'll just expose that method here in the object that we assigned to video server. So I should be able to say video server.getVideo and pass in an ID. So now I have to come back and think about what's happening in the UI. When the user clicks on that edit button, first of all, I need to know about it. And I'm going to need to know when they click on edit or delete. So I'm going to create, during startup time or during DOM ready time, just before we compile the templates, I'll call into a method called wire events, which we haven't implemented yet, but I know I need to wire up all these different events. And for right now, I'll start off just by wiring up when someone clicks on an edit video button. So if you remember in our markup, if I scroll up here to the top in our template, this edit button, if they click on that, it has a class of edit video. And in jQuery, there's a really great way to subscribe to events on elements that don't even exist yet, so elements that may appear in the future. And that's what's going to happen when we create that table of videos. One or more edit buttons are suddenly going to appear. A great way to handle that with jQuery is to use the on method. So basically I'm saying anywhere in the document, if someone clicks on something that has a class of edit video, invoke this method, edit video. And now what's that going to do? I would expect if I click on this, a little bit of extra UI will appear down here that has inputs for the video title and the video length. And that means I'll probably need another template so that given a video, the latest version of that video that I get back from the server, I display that UI. Let me go ahead and add another template here called video edit. So again, it's a script with a type of text/HTML. That means it will not be rendered as HTML. It will not be interpreted as a script. Instead, it's more of just a resource that's sitting here waiting for me to template it with handlebars. And when I do template it and output it, I want it to appear beneath the table of videos that we have. So this is where the output would be directed. And this is a handlebar template, which means it should be compiled. Fortunately, back down here in my module, I already have a method that will compile all my templates. So I'll just add another function here that will compile that video edit template and make it available through that templates object. So now the template's ready. What I need to do when someone clicks on the edit button is I need to find out the ID of the video that they're trying to edit, and then ultimately grab it from the server and use that template to render it. That template, by the way, it has inputs for the video title and the length of the video. And it's using the handlebar markup to insert the proper ID value into a hidden input, the proper title, and the proper length of the video. Give the user a chance to edit it. I'm also using some HTML5 attributes like required and min and max to constrain the input and provide some validation support, at least if the user's browser supports it. You could always add some additional scripts to add those features in if the browser doesn't support it natively. But the current problem is they click on the edit button. We need to be able to find out the ID of the video that they want to edit. Fortunately, that's going to be relatively easy because when we render that table of videos, we put a data dash attribute in here with the video ID. So I just need to be able to navigate from this button up to this TR element and pull out that data ID, and that's relatively easy with jQuery. I can just go ahead and write a helper function right now down here in this module called getID, where you give me the element that was clicked on, and I will go up and look through the parents of that element to find the TR element and pull out the data ID attribute. That'll return the ID value. And that means we just about have everything in place that we need to implement this edit video. Edit video will look something like this. When you want to edit a video, first I'm going to get the ID. This will represent the button that was clicked on. So the getID function was implemented so that we should be able to find the ID given that child element. Once we have the ID, we can go to the video server, get the current data for that particular video, and when that call is done, we can show that video for edit. Show video for edit is going to look very much like show all videos because we need to use a template to generate the output that we need. So give me the video edit template, render it using the video that we get back from the server. When that produces some HTML output, we'll walk up to this element and set its HTML equal to that output. So we're not saving the video yet. We're hopefully just getting it on the screen. Let me run this to see if it works. We'll do a quick Control F5 to run without the debugger. This home page will hopefully load. We'll get some videos on the screen. And now I want to edit the link course, and there my inputs pop down. So I should be able to type and change the title or change the length. And now we need to wire up this submit button and actually have it save changes to the server. So this submit button was created inside of this template. It has an ID of save video. That's another event that I want to wire up using jQuery's on method because this template could appear and disappear throughout the lifetime of this page. So back down in my wire events, in addition to wiring up click events on the edit button, I'll also wire up click event on anything with an ID of save video and call this method, save video. Inside of save video, what I would have to do is go out to the form that holds the ID, the title, and the length. Those are the inputs in that edit template. Dig out all those values, and you could use a library like Knockout to do automatic data binding for you, so you don't have to do this manually. But I'm just going to have it manually here to try to keep things a little bit simple. We'll construct a video out of what the user has typed into this input form, including the hidden ID input, and then we'll tell the video server to update that video. That's not a method that we have implemented yet, but once the video is updated, we'll refresh our list of videos to get any changes from the server and clear out that edit template so that it disappears. That's a very easy function to write. I'll go ahead and add that now. clear out the video edit output so that it disappears after the user clicks submit. And of course, that's only done if it's successful. We could add all sorts of additional error handling in here for the user to make it work nice for them if something goes wrong on the server. So what does videoserver.update video look like? We'll work this from JavaScript back to the controller. Well, if I'm updating a resource, that typically means I send a put request to the server. So let me go up to my video server, and in addition to get videos and get video, we'll have an update video. Update video will use that video API URL, concatenate it with the ID, and do a put to the server, passing along the video as data. What jQuery will automatically do when it does $.ajax and you pass along some data is it will form and code that particular object into the HTTP request message. And form encoding is something that the Web API should be able to handle and deserialize that video. So now I just need to make sure that I expose that update video method on the public interface that we're exposing from this. And now it's time to come over to the video's controller and look at implementing the put operation here. So the put operation is a little bit different from some of the operations that we've done in the past. What I want to do is not take an ID and a string value. What I want to do, as I paste this in here, is take an ID and a video and have the Web API formatters just automatically deserialize a video from the request body. Remember, complex types, it always looks in the request body. Primitive types like int, it'll always look in the URL. So the ID will need to be in the URL, like API/videos/5, and then form encoded into the request will be the video. The first thing we'll do is check to see if that video, if it's valid, if the model state is valid. This is very similar to model binding in regular ASP.NET MVC. The model binder knows that the video might have certain required properties or non-nullable properties, or apply regular expressions to some of the string values that are on that video. And if any of those validation checks fail, model state will not be valid, so we don't want to save it into the database. But if model state is valid, this is how, with the Entity Framework Code First API, we can attach an existing object that's already in the database and tell the Entity Framework just to update it. So it's as easy as doing db.entry on that video. In other words, here's a video that's already in the database, but I'm telling you about it, and I'm telling you that it's modified. Now please go out and save the changes. So if save changes works, what we'll do is we'll create a response that says that everything worked. This is essentially an HTTP status code of 200. Everything worked. And by the way, we'll give you the updated video that we have. And you'll notice this method no longer returns a video like our get methods did. This returns an HTTP response message. This is another level of control that you can use in the Web API to carefully craft the response that you send back to the client. In this case, we want to send back that everything worked. And by the way, here's some serialized content to pass along to the client. If there was some sort of concurrency exception when we updated the database, we can create a response that essentially said that's a 404 error. That might not be the best choice of a response code in this situation, but that will certainly tell the client that something went wrong. And if model state was invalid, we can pick a particular HTTP status code to say, sorry, you gave us a bad request. Something was missing or something was not properly filled out. And it's up to the client to interpret these different codes, so you want to make sure you pick a code that's descriptive of what went wrong. And bad requests would be a pretty good code to return in this scenario. So let's try this out. We might have everything in place where I can be able to click edit, update some attributes, click submit, and actually have it saved on the database on the server. So the home page appears, my videos come up. Let's edit the link video and just change the length a little bit, change it to 198 minutes and submit, and you can see that that refreshes up here. We can change the MVC video, maybe make this MVC 4.1. That changed too. So everything's working so far. And now we really have some code that we can build on. The delete and the create scenarios are going to be very easy compared to what we've done so far.